Sage Labs, this single game application, has surpassed Polygon in all of the network transactions.
There's more transactions happening for Star Atlas than every other EVM chain combined.
Greater than 2 million transactions per day on Solana, 15% of the total network transaction volume.
Literally could not have been built on other chains. That really reinforces the point of only possible on Solana.
Historically, messaging is that we don't need full on-chain gaming. Let's do a Web 2.5 approach. I said, well, screw all that. There's intrinsic benefit to educating on all of the advantages to integrating their life into this Web3 world.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Next Billion podcast, where we're talking to the entrepreneurs, the builders, the people that are awesome building really cool things. And, actually, one of those awesome people building really cool things is, again, joining me today. There was a podcast, I forget, maybe it was 6 months ago or something from now, when we were talking all things Star Atlas. But I'm here with Michael Wagner again. Michael, look, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast again.
George, great to be back, man.
Absolutely. Look, I think there's quite a few cool things to catch up with in the land of on-chain gaming, which I think Star Atlas is the beacon on the hill of where we should aim to. It's a game which is entirely focused on chain economies, on-chain assets, on-chain functionalities for gaming as well. And if you haven't already, I would recommend people go and check out our previous discussion of that a couple of months back. Just search Next Billion Star Atlas and it'll come up. But look, we should get into things. I know we have a community call coming up very soon at the time that we're recording this. But one of the big things that's been happening in Star Atlas land recently has been Sage. Now, tell us, what is Sage?
George, I like to get spicy when we're on the calls together. So I just want to go back to your intro about the idea of on-chain gaming. And to me, this is a narrative that I hope we see start to flourish going into the future, because historically, maybe not so much in 2021, but certainly over 2022 and over the course of this year, a lot of the messaging that's been coming out is that we don't need full on-chain gaming. Let's do a Web 2.5 approach. How do we attract the mainstream? How do we simplify everything? And you'll recall from our previous conversation, I said, well, screw all that, because realistically, I think there's this intrinsic benefit to educating and informing people on all of the advantages to integrating their life and their finances into this Web3 world, into this crypto world. And so our philosophy since inception has always been, how do we build as much of the Star Atlas game logic to live on Solana as possible? Not just the NFTs, not just the economy, not just Atlas and Polis, the tokens, but how do we actually build game logic and have that execute on a blockchain? And so that is actually kind of a segue into your question, which is, what is Sage? Well, for context, I do always like to clarify, we have multiple products that we're developing. So we have Star Atlas, it developed in Unreal Engine. That's the open world MMO space exploration game. We have Sage, Star Atlas Golden Era. This is a browser implementation. And then we have a mobile application in development as well. But what's important about this is that these are not separate product lines from our perspective. These are different implementations into a unified Star Atlas universe. And the reason we're able to do that and synchronize all of these environments is specifically because we're building logic to live on the blockchain. So the reference point, the database, if you will, for every one of those environments, despite operating in a different engine and a different front end, they all point back to the same on-chain programs on Solana. And so they're all calling from the same data set. And that's very powerful. And it doesn't matter.
And is this the same in-game assets as well? So utilizing Atlas and Polis or the NFTs and stuff like that, is each division, I guess, of Star Atlas sort of drawing on the same assets but in a completely different environment?
100%. So if you own a ship and you're playing in Unreal Engine, that exact same ship works in the browser implementation. If you have a crew member, that crew member works in the mobile app. It can be slotted into your ships in the browser game or in the Unreal Engine.
That's crazy.
Client.
That's awesome. I don't think anyone's doing that, right? Often these are siloed things, and that's sort of how people think when they're building a game, whatever it might be, whatever scope. It's like the mobile app is a mobile app game. That is like Blizzard's mobile app game thing that was like Diablo Mobile or whatever that a lot of people didn't like. But
Immortal,
it was quite different. Yeah. And that was quite a different thing to Diablo 4, or that was quite a different thing to anything else, right? But actually in Star Atlas land, in the universe you guys are building, this is all integrating into the same universe. This is using the same assets, the same liquidity, the same everything is sort of all tying into the same stuff, right?
Exactly right. Yeah. So each one of these environments is a separate implementation. It's just a different way to experience Star Atlas. For us, the biggest advantage is that it really widens our possible market and the possible audience because billions of people have a mobile device, many more people can get onto a browser, and then you have this very high quality AAA game that requires high end computing that is probably going to cater very well to the mainstream AAA gaming audience. But there's a way for everyone in the world essentially to participate in some capacity in Star Atlas and in the economy, which again is actually integrated through all of the different environments. Just one really quick example is, and we'll get into this with the Sage Labs deployment, is that the primary gameplay modality is extracting resources and crafting items. Well, all of those resources are also SFTs on Solana, and they're the same resources that people that are playing in Unreal Engine will require to operate their ships. And so what I think the most likely scenario is that you have a set of gamers that are really interested in RTS and interested in this logistics, supply chain management, territory control game, and the production of resources. And that's what they're focused on, is producing these assets. And then you have the people in Unreal Engine that just want to go compete in competitive combat racing. They're consuming food and fuel and ammunition and toolkits. Well, where do they buy those from? They buy those from the players in labs that are crafting them. And so again, since inception, we have woven together the economy and all of these different environments into this unified universe of Star Atlas.
And it's specialization as well. You know, this is everything that Adam Smith spoke about with the invisible hand and so on, is some people might just want to be, you know, resource allocators, and they just want to, the way that they interface with the Star Atlas universe is just through, you know, the 2D browser game or something like that. And maybe they never touch the Unreal thing, but that's fine, right? And you have a solution for whatever type of gamer people might be. And whatever that is, like, everyone's actually connected together and doing something, right? So if I'm in the Unreal Engine version, like, I'm actually dependent on what people are doing over there as well, on a completely different, you know, gaming device or whatever it is, which again, I think that's unique as well. I can't think of any games that have those sorts of tie-ins between how they operate.
I can't say that I've ever seen it, especially not in the Web3 space, but yeah, interconnectedness, interoperability, not only across our environments, but I've kind of derailed us from the what is Sage question, but I think this is just very important to emphasize how powerful all of this can be. And one final point on the idea of composability with these on-chain systems and extensibility is that we have opened up all of the underlying tooling for Sage Labs already, which consists of 7 different programs, IDLs, and all of the documentation and APIs. So whatever developers need to be able to start to build their own applications that integrate into the Sage universe and the broader Star Atlas universe, they're able to do so now. And we already see a ton of innovation out there of people that are building dApps that now provide services to our players. And it would be completely feasible for somebody to use our same program set and build an entirely different UI or a different storyline, maybe a single player, you know, storyline if they wanted to. And all of those extensions would also use the same Star Atlas assets that our players already own.
Very cool. Very cool. I really like that concept. And so the launch happened, and that was
September 21st. We rolled out Sage Labs. And Sage Labs is, I think, as you know, we take this iterative approach to development. So it's always about kind of building out a feature set, releasing that, and continuing to compound development on top of that and enhance the experience. We've done that with every one of the implementations that we have. Sage is the browser-based real-time strategy game. It stands for Star Atlas Golden Era. The intended implementation of that is a full 3D browser game using WebGL assets built in Play Canvas. We're making some great progress on that. It is real-time strategy, as I said, focused all on territory control, logistics, crafting or building star bases, defending those, capturing other star bases. Well, Sage Labs, almost ironically, started as a development tool for our team. That's why it actually has the name Sage Labs. Our engineers were orchestrating all of these programs and testing them in a highly simplified UI just because they knew all of the functionality. And as we got into the later half of this year, and given the estimated timeline for building Sage out, the 3D game, we made the decision to clean up the UI on Sage Labs, and roll that out as a 2D implementation. So it's more
Make it a thing. Yeah.
Make it a thing, turn it into a product. And it has been exceptionally successful in a very short period of time. And we can get into some of the numbers, but it's effectively all of the same mechanics that you would see in Sage in the 3D implementation, just in a 2D format. So it's more of compare it more to an O game for people familiar with that. Whereas Sage is probably going to be more like a Stellaris style of game.
Got it. And like, I want to talk about some of those stats as well, because I think they're really quite incredible. Now, when I was browsing around, I saw literally millions of transactions have been done just for people trying out Sage. And I think it was responsible for a large portion of the Solana transactions in general pretty recently. And I saw, was it somewhere that there's more transactions happening for Star Atlas than like every other EVM chain combined, some crazy thing like that. But yeah, like maybe you can tell us some of your insights, or what's your reaction been to some of these stats coming out and the launch of the game?
Well, pure enthusiasm around the stats. Anytime you launch a product, it's always a kind of a wait and see. Did we get this one right or not? And this one I would definitely consider a success. Some of the numbers that we're doing right now are on average greater than 2 million transactions per day on Solana. We've consistently, for the last week or so, been about 15% of the total network transaction volume on Solana itself. So
huge.
One set of programs with a relatively small user base, by the way. We have some 8,000 unique connected wallets and about 1,500 daily active users. And some of the other stats that you're referencing, whether it be economic or on-chain activity, what's really cool is we're not even the ones publishing that. Other people from around the world are publishing that because all of the data is easily accessible through, the transparency of blockchain, the transparency of Solana, which I think is incredibly cool. Decrypt put out an article. This didn't come from us, by the way, but Decrypt put out an article that Sage Labs, this single game application, has surpassed Polygon in all of the network transactions on Polygon. We were excited when we flipped the ETH a week or so earlier than that, but all of the numbers are growing. Everything's consistently going up. And like how we're able to accomplish all of that, maybe just to provide some context, is, as I said, it's 7 programs that are orchestrated that make up Sage Labs. And so everything from when you're first logging in, you're connecting a wallet, you're creating a profile that will be able to accrue XP, achieve character progression. You can obviously name your character. That's one program. And then when you get into the game, the whole fleet management structure, so importing ships into a starbase and then constructing a fleet out of those, which you can use to go explore the universe, the fleet system, the movement and coordinate systems. You'll remember escape velocity. I think we spoke about that earlier. That was our movement test.
Yeah.
And then the extraction of resources, crafting systems, inventory systems, which are also localized. So if you're on Starbase XYZ, that's different than if you're on Starbase A or at the Central Space Station. You will have localized inventory around the map, all stored on chain. We also rolled out a feature called Atlas Prime, which is a fee payer service. So our users can pay all of their transaction fees in Atlas.
I saw that paid in Atlas, right?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, the idea is you're earning in Atlas.
The whole concept around Atlas was this is the in-game currency that powers all of these things, right? So more transactions that are happening in Atlas, the better. Like that's actually how things should be. And I was checking out on Step because we have analytics there for Atlas, Polis, all these sorts of things. And yeah, like good liquidity, good transaction growth, all this kind of stuff. It's great to see. And things are functioning as you would expect. Like an in-game currency should be used all the time for in-game transactions, right? So all of those millions of transactions, is that Atlas transactions or is that Solana transactions in general? Or
those are Solana transactions is what everyone's pointing to. So the 2 million plus. Now, some subset of those, the Atlas Prime service is optional. You can just pay in Sol if you prefer to pay in Sol, or you can use Atlas to pay. So it's an optional service. So it's not one-to-one, but some portion of those are Atlas denominated transactions as well. The way it really works, though, is we are a proxy. All of the fees ultimately get paid in Sol. It's just a question of who's paying that Sol. And through Atlas Prime, we're paying the Sol cost. They're paying us Atlas, and that's how we manage that service.
And this is a real example. This only possible on Solana has been a meme recently. And really, when we're comparing to there's more transactions happening for Star Atlas's game than all of Polygon, it's like, wow, okay, so it was a good decision. I remember we spoke about in the first call that we had, and you're sort of talking about, why Solana, why it's important to be scalable and cheap and all this sort of stuff. This is a good example of that. Literally could not have been built on other chains that would not have be able to scale in that way, right? So, I mean, yeah, you're already eclipsing the total number of available transactions on other chains. So I guess that really sort of reinforces the point of only possible on Solana.
And to further reinforce it, well, one, I feel like we embody the OPAS kind of meme. Two, my confidence has never been shaken in Solana, but that specifically the low cost, the low latency, the low cost perspective is important because our user right now, the average user is making 1,500 transactions per day while they play. And that is only feasible if you're paying a fraction of a penny on a transaction. From the latency perspective, we can actually deliver a real-time video game in browser that also executes entirely on chain. So both by definition only possible on Solana. I just wanted to mention too, because you talked about the metrics around Atlas and the usage of Atlas, and I think to me the most encouraging feedback that I've seen since the launch is that people have started to think in the paradigm of Atlas, because all of the trades that they're making on the marketplace with other players are denominated in Atlas, and they're thinking about, well, what is my purchasing power with Atlas? How much Atlas do I need to buy this item? Or how much can I get if I sell this item? And this has always been my goal, is to fortify the idea that your in-game currency has real-world purchasing power, and you don't need to consider what is the exchange rate to, say, USD or some other foreign, national currency. That it should be, I have a life inside this game that actually and the currency has real functionality, real application. Oh, and I can also go buy T-shirts and stuff with it in the real world if I want to.
Yeah, that's super cool. That's the equivalent of let me Google that for you, because like that statement, Google sort of embedded itself into the language of that is a way that you find information, is they have their company name literally in the phrase, right? And then, yeah, being able to get people, I think NFTs was another way to do that, where NFTs were denominated in often Sol in the Solana ecosystem or Ethereum in the Ethereum ecosystem. And that got a way of people thinking about their NFTs denominated in a currency that's not just the USD price. And people were interested in, is the number going to go from 10 Sol to 15 Sol or something like that? They're thinking in Sol terms for a lot of these things. So getting people thinking in Atlas terms, I think, reinforces that value add for everything that you're building. And once people start thinking that way, then I think that's when you can really start to see good growth and continued expansion and exception and all that sort of stuff.
I think what's really important about it is when people have the sense of some level of store of value with the currency, then their motivation is not to immediately convert out of it. And so you have retention and savings in our case, in the in-game currency. But that's also true to your exact point of NFTs with any of these layer one protocols. Hey, there's utility for this currency that I'm holding. It's not necessarily about speculative value at all. It's if I hold this currency, I can do certain things with it. And if that was ETH or Sol and being able to purchase NFTs, you needed it anyway. And if you thought in any sense you would purchase an item with Sol again in the future, well, you're not going to sell and then try to trade back into it later. You're probably just going to hold it for that future transaction.
Yeah. And are you concerned or like, okay, so we got 2 million a day in terms of transactions. Let's say it goes to 20 million a day. Does that change anything that you guys do, maybe on a contract level or anything really from your end? Like, is there any concerns there about the scalability of what you guys have built?
I would say modest concerns, just in the sense that, we're talking about 1,500 players per day right now. Call it 10,000 connected wallets. Let's say we go to 100,000 connected wallets and maybe 60,000 active players per day. What does that do to the network? Does that impact Solana? I think Solana is going to be able to scale. I'm also very excited about Firedancer coming out. But I also know that on our side, there are a number of optimizations that we can make. And these lessons are learned only by deploying and getting that feedback and seeing where there's inefficiencies. And so even to the extent where we've been able to identify paths to batch certain transactions or batch certain in-game actions into a single transaction so we can reduce that count over time. I mean, our goal is not to go out and say, hey, we're doing the most transactions on the network. Our goal is to have a functional game that, provides an economy that's fun and that doesn't destabilize the network. But it is cool to see how all of this is working and that Solana has been able to support us, or the network has been able to support us to date.
Yeah, because it's been a classic example of a lot of projects in the past being a victim of their own success, where you have, say on Ethereum, you have some DeFi protocol that came along, everyone wanted to use it, and then all of the gas fees on Ethereum spiked way up, and then, now it's $800 to even deposit into this protocol, right? So kind of kills it before it can even really get anywhere, right? But I guess, with Solana, certainly Firedancer coming along is going to massively increase throughput and things like that of the Sol blockchain. And we've actually been thinking about and the location of our validator, and I've been learning about the geographic density of how these nodes can talk to each other and latency and so on, super important. So I think from where it looks at the moment, there's still a lot of untapped capacity that no one's going to be tapping anytime soon. In fact, it's that capacity is going to go way up. So it doesn't look like that's going to be a limiting factor in the future in terms of onboarding users.
That's the sense I get as well. And all the same, we still, from our side of things, want to optimize our usage of the network. It's not only to our benefit and the benefit of the network, but to the benefit of the user, to the extent that we can minimize the number of transactions that they're clicking through and any fees that they're paying related to those transactions, as low as they may be. In aggregate, when you're doing tens of thousands of these, they can certainly add up. So, but this is part of the build, iterate, release, and fix broken things process.
Absolutely. And one of the cool things I saw recently, you had a Q3 economic report as well on how things are progressing there. And my take would be something along the lines of the more things that you do that are inputs into this economy, the better it's going to be, right? So whether that's more users, whether that's different games, whether that's launching new stuff or whatever, everything is sort of building up that they're all using the same resource pool, right? So it's just more people using the same pool equals higher economic value over time if it's the same supply, right? So are there any sort of takeaways from the economic report that you guys are excited about or interested to see?
So we produce a quarterly state of the economy report that's every quarter. It's a look back at the previous 3 months. Major kudos to our economics team, by the way. Chris Smith is a PhD in economics. He's head of the game economy, and Gareth on our team is an analyst, and the two of them collectively put this latest quarterly together. They've been doing a phenomenal job at keeping the economy sustainable and balanced, and derailing a little bit, but what's extremely promising is since the launch of Labs, the earnings potential of the players has actually been pretty strong. And what's unique about our approach is that earnings potential is not derived from an Atlas emission curve. It's not an inflation curve, which is what a lot of games in the play to earn space historically have used. Hey, if we issue a lot of tokens, it becomes very attractive for players to come in because it feels like you're earning a lot.
Minting the coins. Yep.
It's kind of like the US right now, just mint as much money as you want. But unfortunately, that is not stable. That's not sustainable, especially if there's no application or utility. Now, in the case of Sage Labs, the majority of the earnings that the players are extracting is on a peer-to-peer basis. It's virtually zero sum. Somebody's buying that item or resource or component from you, and someone else is selling it, obviously. And so you're not really looking at an inflation per se as a way of producing earnings for players. It's just demand of different resources based on the items that they want to craft in the game. And so if there's where we do have inflation is through the ability to craft some of these SFTs. So players can go in and they can craft some unique ships. Some of these we've never sold and we never will sell. They can craft some land, some claim stakes. A bunch of different items are available in the game for them to collect. And then there's this other cool mechanic that we call golden tickets for Star Atlas Golden Era. It's really a resource sink for every single resource that's produced in the game. You can produce this golden ticket, and we'll be launching shortly a drawing system. And so on a weekly basis, there's $150,000 worth of Star Atlas loot available in this draw. And players can opt to submit their tickets on any week that they want. They're one-time use. They get burned after. But otherwise, it's like any traditional raffle system, but the players have to go in and craft the tickets. That's the only way they can. Well, there's actually 3 ways. They can buy them from other players, they can craft them themselves, or they can participate in our Star Path referral system and also earn them. But
well, the tickets have to exist for someone to buy them as well, right? Like someone has to have done the work.
That's right.
To go and create them to be entered into the raffle.
And that's the critical point is we're not selling these tickets. Our team is not selling the tickets. They can only be created through actual gameplay and people crafting them, to your point.
Proof of work.
That's right.
That's what it's all about. Look, that's awesome. So we spoke about StarPath, the referrals as well, or was that the Atlas path?
I know we've got a lot going on, George. So Atlas Prime.
I'm making notes.
Atlas Prime is the fee payer service. Golden
Yep.
tickets are part of Sage Labs. It's one of the craftable items. StarPath is a referral system. A little shout out to Laddercaster guys. BuddyLink is a product that they created, which is a full on-chain referral system. We've integrated that into our StarPath referral system, and so you can go create your affiliate link, and this is all about sharing information about Star Atlas, helping educate new users, bringing them in, and being compensated, being rewarded for helping us grow the network. It's quite a strong
Referrals are super important to that, I think, and a lot of apps would do well to have some form of referral mechanism in there, because it can actually drive significant traction, like double-digit percentages of daily active users and that sort of thing. Over time.
In our case, we've already seen 1,500 signups to this referral system. I won't shill it too much, but I will say it's a very strong economic incentive right now. It's 25% of the primary market sale price or of the royalty fee that goes to Automata. So it's a 25% rev share, and then it's a 10% discount for anybody that you refer. And you also get golden tickets for people that you refer. So another way to get entry into that golden ticket system. But strong program, we're seeing it grow. I'm seeing people share information, and the purpose is not to go out and necessarily shill, but to inform people on how to get involved in Star Atlas.
Absolutely. Well, look, thank you so much for your time today. We're actually going to move to a community call, which, by the way, I think Step, by the time this goes out, go and check the Step feed on Twitter. We'll probably have some outtakes and recordings from what we're about to do. But look, thank you so much for your time. Go and check out Sage. So where should people go? Is it play.staratlas.com, I think it was, or blog posts or communities? There's guilds and stuff involved. Where should people go to find out more?
Yeah, if you're completely new to the Star Atlas universe, I would first recommend going to our Discord. We have an extremely active community. We have an incredible community team there helping to get you onboarded, and they're happy to share information. If you need assets, you can go to our marketplace at play.staratlas.com, and then the Labs gameplay client itself is labs.staratlas.com.
Amazing. Go check it out. We'll put the links as well below as for people that want to find out more about Star Atlas. But look, I always say Star Atlas is like the gold standard for on-chain gaming. Like, they really believe about that. And the traction's there. You got millions of transactions happening. You got an in-game economy. Everything's being done on-chain. It's a great example of only possible on Solana. So Michael, look, pleasure having you on the podcast today, and we'll talk again soon, I'm sure.
I'll see you soon. Getting my wallet ready now.
Let's go.
All right, see you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.